Good morning. Welcome to FMCSA's listening session on property brokers. Let me start by saying it's been a while since we've been in front of a large group of professionals due to COVID. So I want to take this opportunity to say thanks to the professional drivers out there, the carriers, the professionals in the CMV industry for what you do today and what you've been doing for the past many years. And that's moving America's freight across America's highways. Critical, crucial, so important during our time of COVID, and critically important now. So sincere thanks for what you do every day. My name is Ken Riddle, and I am the Office Director for Registration for FMCSA. My office handles the US DOT number, operating authority, insurance requirements, process agent requirements, vetting, and our customer service center, our call center for FMCSA. So mainly my office interfaces with new carriers looking to come into the industry on the registration side, but here to learn a lot about brokers today. To my left here is Mr. Larry Miner. He is our Associate Administrator for Policy for FMCSA. Larry?
Good morning, and it's good to be back here at MATS again after a few years hiatus because of COVID-19. My office is responsible for running FMCSA's regulatory development program, and we're also responsible for reviewing petitions for rulemaking, such as the one that was recently granted for OOIDA for broker transparency and the SBTC petition. And we manage the program for looking at applications for exemptions and applications for waivers.
And also we have Scott Merrilson, who is an FMCSA attorney advisor. Scott?
Yeah, hi, Scott Merrilson, attorney advisor, FMCSA, enforcement and litigation. I work on a lot of commercial regulatory issues, including brokerage, and work closely with Larry and Ken. So welcome.
Let me first start by sharing a few administrative items with you. Today's listening session was published in the Federal Register on March 8th, 2023. And while today's listening session is seeking your comments and feedback, specifically on the broker freight forwarder notice of proposed rulemaking that we published, and also the interim broker guidance that we published, both recently in the last 4 months, I might add, we'll also listen to other concerns and issues in the area of brokers. Today's session is being recorded, not only back here by Matt's, but also by Lindsay, our court reporter. So thank you, Lindsay. It has to be recorded because this is an ongoing active rulemaking. So the comments that you make and the comments that we make need to go into the the docket for public viewing. So Lindsay will be recording everything that we say. So when we get to the listening session part where we want to hear from you and learn from you, we'll ask you to step up to the mics on the left or right side of the room and state your full name, and then spell your name for Lindsay, and then you could go ahead and make your statement. So we appreciate that. Let's see. Maybe it's just slow. Hitting next, Carolyn. Here we go. FMC, I have good news, I think. This is good news. FMCSA recently addressed 3 petitions it received, 2 of which were granted and 1 of which was denied. I'm going to read, I think for those of you in the back of the room, that might be hard to read. So this is the only slide I'm going to read, but I am going to read through these 3 petitions so you know what they're about. So bear with me here. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association, OIDA, petitioned the agency to require property brokers to provide an electronic copy of each transaction record automatically within 48 hours after the contractual service has been completed, and further prohibit brokers from including any provision in their contracts that requires a motor carrier to waive its rights to access the transaction records. FMCSA is granted that petition. In other words, we will undertake a rulemaking on that petition. The Small Business and Transportation Coalition, SBTC, petitioned the agency to prohibit brokers from coercing or requiring parties to to brokers' transactions to waive their right to review the record of the transaction as a condition for doing business, and prohibit brokers from including a stipulation or clause in their contracts exempting the broker from having to comply with 49 CFR 371.3. FMCSA granted that position, so we'll be undertaking a rulemaking on that topic. It's important to note that the decision to grant these petitions and commence a rulemaking proceeding does not mean that the regulatory changes in question will ultimately be adopted. FMCSA determines whether a proposed provision is adopted as part of a final rule on the basis of all available information developed in the course of rulemaking proceedings, including public comments received on its proposals consistent with the statutory criteria. Lastly, the agency denied the Transportation Intermediaries Association, TIA, petition to eliminate the requirements in 371.3 that freight brokers disclose upon request transactional records for a particular transaction to any party to that transaction. So that's where we stand on the three petitions. Another initiative, and one of the reasons you're here today, is the agency published a notice of proposed rulemaking on broker and freight forwarder financial responsibilities. In short, it covered the 5 areas that are shown on the slide here. Assets readily available, those are the assets that are in a trust fund. There's 2 types of securities for a broker. You can either go the surety bond route, which is regulated by the Department of Treasury, or the trust fund route, which is regulated by FMCSA. And this rule will help clarify and define some of the stipulations that are in law when it comes to the trust fund. Like, what are assets readily available mean? What does that mean in a trust fund? And we further define that in the NPRM, and we're seeking comments on what we put in the NPRM. Immediate suspension of a broker freight forwarder operating authority. As soon as there's a drawdown on that surety bond or that trust, it says the FMCSA will immediately suspend the broker authority. So we need to clarify what that means. What does immediate mean? And we did that in the NPRM, and we're looking for comments. And then the last 3 areas, the surety or trust fund responsibilities in cases of broker, freight forwarder financial failure, like insolvency or bankruptcy. Enforcement authority, and lastly, entities eligible to provide trust funds. So that docket is still open. It's open until April 6th, so we encourage you to make comments in the Federal Register on the NPRM. We need to hear from you. We want to hear from you during this session, and we also want to hear from you via the public docket. The last area, so we are taking numerous steps in the broker world. The last one is the interim guidance. We were asked by Congress to clarify the definition of a broker, distinguish a broker from a dispatch service, determine who needs authority, who does not need authority. And we did that via the interim guidance published. That public docket is still open, will be open until April 6th, and we encourage you to make comments in the public docket on this particular definition that we published in the Federal Register. It covers the 5 areas shown on the slide. I'm not going to walk through them all. But again, that's what this session is for. We would like to get your feedback, your comments, and learn more about broker activities and how it impacts the CMV world. And with that, we're going to open the listening session. So there's, again, a microphone on the left and right side of the room. We'd ask you to step up to the mic, state your name, spell your name for Lindsay, and then we're ready to listen. Carolyn's coming.
Hey, hey. There you go. Here we go. Let's get you set up.
Ready?
Yep, there you go.
Just a little statement. I'm representing CDL-DU, which is a driver's alliance representing all CDL holders. The 371.3 is already in the regulation book. The issue comes where the brokers are having all the drivers waive their rights. And it's on RMIS, it's in the broker packet, it says you waive your right. The issue with it is there's a US code, 49 US 14906, that has a financial fine against the brokers from waiving our rights. You know, they're skirting the regulations. So I guess my question, and I handed you guys a list of questions I would like answered at your convenience, please. My question is, what part of the regulations in the book do you regulate? Because this has been in the green book forever, 371 section. And it's not that we want you to regulate their pay. I don't want that. I don't want a cap on them. We want you to make sure that they follow through with the process. What OIDA did in SBTC by saying, yes, we want you to make sure we get the copy of this. Okay, we'll haul the loads. We've agreed to haul the loads. If we see the rate that they took 50% with today's technology, I'll take a picture of it, I'll post it. We can fix our own industry by making brokers get down where it's more responsible. And how this relates to safety is drivers are doing everything they can do just to make a dollar, and they can't fix their equipment. So if we have the transparency side of things, just so we can see it, this is a good thing. But I don't know if you guys don't understand how it affects us all. So I guess I gave you a list of questions also, and I'll answer anything you want as far as the driver's side, what we can tell you what it's doing.
All right, let me just start, if you don't mind. Let me just start by saying this is not a new area from FMCSA, but our focus, FMCSA's focus, has been on CMV safety, right? Rightly so. But we understand the issues out there that the drivers are facing when it comes to brokers. So this is not a new area, but an area that we're going to focus on. And that's why we granted the petitions, and that's why we want to hear from you. So yes, it's in the regulation, or it's in the law.
Right.
But our focus, our resources have been on CMV safety. Larry or Scott?
A couple of follow-on questions for Lee. Based on your conversations with other drivers hauling similar loads from possibly the same shippers, what's your sense for the amount of money you think that the brokers are trimming off of the top inappropriately? You mentioned 50% off the top of your head there. Just based on your experience and your conversations with other drivers.
A lot of drivers think they're taking 40 to 50 to 60%. I don't know. I won't haul a load if I can't make a profit. I'm in a business to make a profit. But it's again, I don't want the broker capped. We just want the transparency. None of us want to be capped, because if you start capping the brokers, then they're going to turn around and say the truck drivers need to haul for this bottom dollar. We don't want that. But a realtor broker, a stock broker, everybody knows what they pay, what they charge. This is the only industry we don't know what it's costing us to have them as a service. And the excuse that they use that it's proprietary information, oh, Pepsi doesn't want to know what Coke is charging to move it, that's BS. Because the guy that built the product and the receiver, they know what they want to spend. The shipper charges X amount, the receiver's going to pay it. That's all we want to know, is what the bottom dollar is. We don't need to know all the other things. And that's where I'm hoping that this heads to.
And I guess one other follow-on question, that based on what they do offer to pay you to transport a given load, how much more do you think they should have paid you based on your experience, what you're paying for fuel, maintenance, and your cost of operation? How much more should that particular load have been?
My honest opinion, the basic load should pay whatever the average fuel price is right now. I don't know what everybody's hauling for. I won't haul it, like I said, if I can't make money. But there is people that are hauling it just to make truck payments, and they're starving. But as a minimum, your generic freight should be whatever fuel prices average go in that lane. If that was the case, everybody would have money to put money for maintenance. They'd be able to support their family. They would get newer equipment. The reason a lot of us don't have newer equipment is we can't afford it because the rates are so low. So are they getting too much? I don't know. Some are, some aren't. Are some fair brokers out there? Yes. I'm not going to say they're all bad, but there is a lot of shady brokers that are starting up that aren't getting regulated. I mean, how often do you guys audit a broker compared to auditing a truck driver? When I get a DOT number and I start within 6 months, I get audited. Do you audit a broker when you give them the authority to be a broker?
No.
Maybe if that was done, that would start making brokers stop this. You know, there is a lot of shady brokers, different nationalities. You can call a broker, they're in a different country. And this is their customer? No, it's not. That's the things that are going on out here. And a lot of drivers won't use a broker board or a freight board because then everybody finds out, oh my God, there's 100 trucks there. Now we can drop the rate down to 90 cents a mile, which people are hauling for. You can't even drive down the road for that. That covers your fuel costs. Now you got insurance and plates and maintenance. So they are getting too much. Which it just needs to be transparent. So I guess the majority of us just want, this is a good thing in a lot of people's mind. We don't want you to regulate their pay. Just let us see it. We can fix the industry ourselves. So that's all I got.
We appreciate your insights and comments, Lee.
Thank you.
We'll alternate.
Yeah, Louis Pugh. I'm from OOIDA. First question is, what's the time frame expected on this new announced broker transparency? You guys got a time frame when this is going to come out?
No, we do not have a time frame yet, and that'll probably be something that's announced when the unified agenda, that's something that the government puts out to let people know all the active rulemakings that we're working on and the schedule that we hope to accomplish. So there should be a new publication of the unified agenda for the government coming out within a few weeks, I would hope. And at that point in time, you'd see what the time frame is for that rulemaking. And I don't believe I heard your name.
Louis, L-E-W-I-E, Pugh. And is this going to be an advanced noted rule, or is this going to be a proposed rule, or something different?
Based on where we've been so far, in all likelihood, it would probably start off with a notice of proposed rulemaking, but that'll also be announced in the unified agenda.
Okay, and my final statement, kind of back on this transparency and the importance of it. I see in our office every single solitary week, one big broker is very guilty of this, but from others, our guys are getting chargebacks after they go to a customer, deliver a load, they get a clean bill of lading and leave. A week or two later, they get a bill saying there's a claim. It's always an even number. It's $500, $1,000. We all know in this world, nothing's even. They won't, and they have it in their contract, since they can't have the transparency, they don't even have to tell them what it's for. And then they have this cross-collateralization clause in there. They're holding, I've had members, they hold $20,000 or $30,000 worth of their money because they have this $500 claim and they're trying to dispute it and figure it out. If we had this transparency, then these brokers would have to show this is why you're being charged. First of all, if you leave there as a driver with a clean bill of lading, there shouldn't be any after charge because you don't know what that receiver did with that freight. If they left it sit out in the rain or the produce sit there and spoil, you don't know that, but they're charging us back, supposedly. And again, I don't know if the broker's just doing this or the customer's doing this or what, but it's very important. And also this fraud and double brokering that we're seeing has just gone crazy. I've got members picking up loads and then they find out that it was somebody else's load. This broker isn't even real because they stole somebody's DOT number. So it's just a mess right now. So the sooner we can do this, the better it'll be for everybody.
Louis,
Thank you very much.
I got one question, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Louis, if the contract becomes transparent and the carrier sees the contract from the broker, would that solve the chargeback issue? Because you won't know what the chargeback is in the initial contract.
Well, my understanding, the way this is going to work, and maybe I'm mistaken, but if you have the transparency, you take the load, but then after you deliver and you ask to see what all the charges were and all this, to see what the broker got. If there's complete transparency, the broker is going to have to show the carrier why they're charging the carrier $500. Because this is what I'm saying. This broker is just sending the carrier a bill and saying, hey, You had a claim on load XYZ. No explanation, no reason, no proof, no nothing.
Got it. Thank you, Louis.
Thank you.
And a reminder to say your name and spell it for our court reporter, the next speaker.
My name is Daniel Coors, Daniel Koors. In May of 2020, I stood with over 200 drivers on Constitution Avenue. On the 13th of May, myself and 150 drivers decided to take a stand. We shut Constitution Avenue down for an hour. Myself had over 8 defensive snipers, from what I've been told, by Secret Service, on my head the entire time. I was the center stone of that shutdown. I was drug off the street by my fellow drivers to keep from being prosecuted for what we were standing up for. This exact thing we stand here today and talk to you with. What do we need? I stood with people from 6 continents on this earth, everywhere. It wasn't just one nationality or one group. It was drivers of America standing together. This is one of the most important things to our industry, to keep us small guys alive. I myself try not to use as many brokers as possible. I was jacked over last week by TQL on a load. But we have our brothers and sisters from Mexico, South America, the Caribbean, Africa, all over the place, because their English is not perfect. When they talk to brokers, brokers will bottom feed them because there's no transparency, because they are coerced to get the load. They have to sign away their rights to 371. That needs to stop. They are Americans as well as I am, and they need to be treated just as well as I am. And I will stand there again today if I have to. I am willing to go to prison to keep this from destroying our industry. You have the power to change this. You have the power to tell these brokers that they have to follow the guidelines. That's what we're asking for. It's been on the books, like Lee said, since the beginning of days of the Green Book. What we need is your help in making the brokers follow the rules. We don't need you guys to set rates. We don't need you to set who makes profit and who doesn't. By giving us that transparency, we can go in the next time and just negotiate a fairer rate. In the last year, I've talked with friends of mine who have done immense research. Corporate shippers manufacturing has had an increase of profits of roughly 18%. Brokerage houses have had a profit of roughly 10 to 12%. Drivers, owner-operators, small business trucking in general, has had a loss of 18%. How can we compete against that when we do not have transparency with the brokers, knowing how bad they are pushing us down? We tell them, hey, you've got to do better than that. No, that we're all in. They lie to us day in and day out by saying the word all in, when we know for a fact there's money there, but we don't have a clue how much to really push back. We want this pushed through. I agree with everything OIDA's asking for. I agree with what STBC is asking for. It needs to be done. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your comment.
My name is Mark Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, Mark's with a K. I'm a member of OIDA. I've been driving my own truck for close to 30 years. And it's tough right now. Some of the things I've learned recently and why we need this transparency. Stopped at a shipper. They detained me for 6 hours. My broker doesn't start paying me detention time until after 4 hours, and then it's only $35 an hour. Found out from the shipper's actually paying the broker from the first hour $50 an hour. That needs to be passed through to the driver. The broker at that point has no incentive to help that driver get off that dock. He can sit there for as long as he wants because he's making money off that driver just sitting, and the driver's going broke. Same thing with fuel surcharge. We know that the brokers are getting a fuel surcharge on their contracts, but we don't know how much. We get what they'll give us. So there's a good chance they're making a little bit of their profit off a fuel surcharge that ought to go to the person who's paying for the fuel to haul that load. I don't think anybody here would disagree with that. And as far as the chargebacks, you know, if there's a legitimate chargeback from the shipper to the broker, well, we need to see that before we pay it. And that all comes down to if there's a claim that needs to happen at the time the transaction is completed at the dock, not weeks later or months later or whenever they decide to get around to pay you, and then you got to go back through your records and figure out what the heck happened. We should know at the completion of that transaction that it's complete, the freight was where it was supposed to and received by the receiver, and that should be it. If we're getting a chargeback, we got to know that they're actually paying that to their carrier that they're brokered for. And the transparency, if we know who their customer is, if it's another broker or a legitimate shipper. Now, to solve the problem with their customers, all you've got to do is tell us that we can't disclose the information we received from the broker, and it should go no further than the carrier who's getting paid. That's where the final dollar stops. The load's complete, and everybody's out of it. So there is a way to keep those numbers as confidential as possible by just asking the carriers to keep that information to yourself. It doesn't need to go further than that. But I agree, people are making money. I don't begrudge the brokers making some money. We've got brokers we do business with and have for over 20 years that are very good friends on the phone to us in the middle of the night sometimes, and we can negotiate with them. It's a good relationship. They still won't tell us what they're getting paid. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Mark, I appreciate the specifics on the transparency. That really helps us.
Yeah, no, I mean, that fuels, we've always, for years have been saying the fuel surcharge needs to go to the guy buying the fuel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Jim Heffernan, CDL Drivers Unlimited. I want to address the board here on a question that was asked to Lee earlier. That question was, how much do you think the brokers are making? We can't answer that question because we have coercion going on. Secondly, we have the FMCSA not following a congressional authorization to enforce 371.3. So that's, I want to complete that answer for Lee. We can't answer if it's 10%, 15%, or 25% because we're being coerced to do business, to keep our trucks running. We're being coerced to sign off our ability to find that information out. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
One question, sir. Given that the agency has granted these petitions for rulemaking from OADA and SBTC, is there something else you're looking for us to do on this broker transparency issue?
No.
Okay.
To answer very quickly, Lee took our position. Just enforce transparency and let the industry take care of itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
When you're on the mic, please make sure that you say your name and then spell your name for our recorder.
Okay.
So that they have an accurate record. Thank you.
All right, I can do that. Jim, J-I-M, Heffernan, H-E-F-F-E-R-N-A-N. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
My name is, ooh, that's loud.
We hear you.
Thank you. My name is Marcus Davis. I'm the Marcus, M-A-R-K-C-U-S, D-A-V-I-S. My name is Marcus Davis, and I'm the owner of MTJ Transport out of the great state of South Carolina. I'm grateful for this moment because I remember him from the last listening session when they transformed, when they had a listening session from ELDs, from paper logs. So here we at once again. If you look at the video, I stated this. We here once again. Now, I'm glad I'm for this moment. The one thing that I missed when I was there last time, let's talk about transparency for a moment. Are we really talking about transparency? Are we talking about people having control? Because that's what it's all about. Now, I want to ask the question. Let's talk about, very briefly, the parking bill. How many of us know the parking bill that's supposed to be in play under the Obama administration? You know where that money went? I guess nobody know? You know where that money went? In Big Brother watching us. All of a sudden, under this infrastructure bill, they got another parking bill. Y'all see any construction side the highway? I'm asking questions. Have anybody seen any construction side the highway? The state of South Carolina, and I'm going to get to the transparency bill. The state of South Carolina 3 weeks ago, they had 9 accidents in 4 days, 18-wheelers. We talking about transparency or we talking about safety? Okay, I can keep it going on. I was loading in Charleston, South Carolina. Hear my story, I'm going to be brief. I was in South Carolina. Guy did not speak no English. Do we know how many drivers out there that are not speaking English driving down the highway? Where is y'all enforcement? So we got a lot of problems here, but the bottom line is transparency is related to money, and the money allowing certain things to take place, certain people have control. Now, I'm going somewhere. The parking bill. You ain't got to answer that, but I must say that. Accidents have gone up pre-COVID. Anybody know how accidents went up? A 31-year high. ELD has been in effect for 2 years. ELD have not answered the problem. It's created a problem. This is my next point. Now, my wife is a doctor, PhD. She's sitting right there recording me. How many doctors we have in here? What does stress encourage? Chronic diseases. But they said ELDs was going to create a safe environment. How many know here accidents have gone up? Federal motor carrier. Now let's go. I'm going to hit like the other man said. Accidents have continued to go up because of lack of education, lack of training. Why? Because somebody's capitalizing, but the truck driver not. Now, let's go somewhere else. Safety is down. Now, ask me why I say safety is down. We're still talking about transparency. Safety is down. Why safety is down? Here comes the transparency bill now. How many people in here have driving trucks can be real? My income has went down 30% in the last 2 years. If it had not been for my wife, who has a PhD, to support a black man that can't take care of his house. Let's be real. My income has went down 30%. I'm having not to be able to take care of my bills. So we want to talk about transparency. Now let's talk about safety. So if we cannot pay our bill, then guess what we're not doing? Taking care of our trucks. Let's talk real. And so it's not a point that y'all have to make change. Y'all need to make change. Because accidents, I can show you on my phone right now, a driver moving his axles and the brakes was out of adjustment. And didn't speak a lick of English. That's another problem we got to address. Now, I'm about to be finished. I'm going to say, like I said last time, I'm a preacher. If y'all seen it. What about the driver advisory panel? Have y'all heard about that? Y'all was supposed to be in the last few years? Have y'all heard anything about that? Where the driver panel at? So supposed to be connected to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Why we don't have a driver panel? Why we have people that got a college degree don't know nothing about trucking in position? I've been in transportation 29 years. I know I look young. Thank y'all for saying that. I'm ready to get out of it. It sucked. we got DOT pulling you over and say what? And now you get a mark on your FMCSA, right? How am I going to take care of a truck when I can't pay for it? Let's talk. So what we going to do here? Now, and I'm about to be finished. Let's talk about the boycott the young man was talking about. I was there. Got pictures of it. Why was NBC and CBS was not in front of shining light on that? They shine light on everything else. Why? Let's talk about control again. Like that young man said, every nationality in this earth was there that day, those 3 weeks. Why was nothing changed? Nothing against him. He said that the brokers were stealing over 3 years ago. Donald Trump said it on live TV. Didn't y'all hear it? And we have anything changed? So what I'm saying, my brothers and sisters, we can sit here and talk all day long and sound good, but I was there 2019, nothing has changed. He knew I was there. Go back and look at the listening session. I was there talking about this same problem. When is change is going to come? I've been to Clyburn office. I've been to Joe Wilson office. I've been to what's Lindsey Graham office. I've been to all these my affiliates off, all my congressman office. Still, there's no change. So my point to you, how bad it's going to get for somebody to make a change? How bad? ELDs, and I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to get back to the money. ELDs is a joke. That's a lie from the pits of you know what. Excuse me, I'm sure I can't say it. Why it's a joke? Because drivers are driving more unsafe now than pre-ELDs. How do you like somebody, you got to hold the wheel? Because we got too many variables. Now let's talk about transparency on that. So my point, I'm finished. So my point is, if we're going to talk about transparency, let's talk about getting these brokers to pay. Drivers don't have to break laws. Drivers don't have to run illegal. And drivers can take care of their truck.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. And just a reminder to say your name and spell it.
Hey, my name is Bill Chestnut. It's a B-I-L-L, and the last name is C-H-E-S-N-U-T. I'm just kind of winging it. I've never really talked in front of anybody before. I'm with a company called D&M Transportation, which is our asset division based out of Edders, Pennsylvania. And I had recently just was heading up D&M Logistics, which is a brokerage firm. And I do believe that everybody has a consistent train of thought about brokers. And what I wanted to stand up and say is it's not as consistent as you think. You guys, the assets, endure a loss. And brokerages as well. I mean, nobody was complaining when it was it wasn't a shipper's market. It was the other way around, right? All the assets were making money. I'm an asset too. But now that it's flipped, right, then it becomes irritated. And fingers are pointed and everything like that. But I can honestly tell you, last week, I had a rate from York, Pennsylvania to Elgin, Illinois. We've run these steady for years, right? We ran these rates at $1,700. I'll be open with you, right? Last week, I got pushed down twice. And it's because, and what everybody is failing to understand here, as shippers, they look at data. They have ways to determine where the market is going to go. They work with analysts. They know exactly what they're doing. When rates go down, they don't just go down because of asset, or they don't just go down because of a brokerage pushing them down, and the money's still there. That's not accurate at all. So when assets endure a loss, so does logistics, typically. Now, I can't speak for every broker, right? Because we all have different contracts. We all have different sources of freight, different relationships, that might hold true to a higher rate because of the service. So I just want to stand up and say, I've been in trucking my whole life. I grew up around it, and I've seen the asset side, and I've seen the brokerage side, and I'm telling you what, it is hand in hand, regardless of what anybody thinks. Honestly, it really is. I do believe in transparency with rates. I believe that it'll make the market thrive in the right direction, and it'll give me an opportunity to be competitive with other brokers and hold good carriers to me. So I just want to stand up and say that.
Thank you, Bill. I think that's an important part, Bill, is important point, and that is brokers are a critical part of the industry.
Yes.
And the majority are great at what they do and great partnerships with the carrier industry. There's a few bad apples out there.
There's several, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's mostly what we're hearing today when it comes to broker issues is from those bad apples out there.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask him a question? Yeah. You're a broker? You do broker?
We have an asset division and brokerage.
You make drivers sign away 371.3. Or if a driver calls you the house load, are you going to let me see the rate con? That's what this discussion is about.
Seeing the rate con?
You're a broker. Are you going to let me know what the top dollar is and what you're taking?
We provide rate con with the rate included, yes.
Not just a rate con.
You mean the total pay? Yeah.
Does it say in your packet, I waive my rights to 371 or section 49 of the transportation code?
I would honestly have to look into that, to be honest with you. We set up through RMIS.
Then it does.
Right,
It
okay.
automatically does.
Well,
RMIS automatically has it in there.
we set up through RMS in light of the advantage of getting insurance.
Okay.
So we utilize that for that point, not for the 371. I can assure you,
So if I call a load for you, you will tell me what the gross load paid, what your percentage was.
absolutely, we always do, yeah.
You're one of the few.
Yeah.
But I'm saying RMIS has it built in there. So a lot of drivers don't know that.
See, it doesn't matter, like, there's lots of brokers that'll tell you that a load pays $1,800 and they're paying you $1,780.
Right.
You know what I mean? So transparency is only so much, and it's never gonna break that.
Right.
That's never gonna change.
Do you think if we get transparency,
Could you use the microphone, please?
can help the brokers put pressure on the shippers?
Could you use the microphone, please, and identify yourself for the court reporter? And just for the court reporter, the previous gentleman that asked the question, that was Lee Schmidt.
Mark Carter, Mark with a K, C-A-R-T-E-R. Do you think from the broker side, if you had the drivers could see the transparency with you, that together we can put pressure on the shippers to make these loads pay a reasonable amount?
No, I do believe that if there's transparency, it's not necessarily, well, yeah, in a light, yeah, it puts pressure on a shipper in regards to raising a rate because they'll be able to see other shippers' rates, right?
Right.
So hand in hand it goes. So if you want your product moved and a carrier services correctly, we can bump it up, right? That's
Yes.
just the way brokerage works. Your service, your rates. Those are the two things that make it business. You have better service, you get better rates. Sometimes you got to have lower rates just to get it, then get better service. So it all goes hand in hand. So it really is a balance between brokerage, carriers, and the shippers.
Yeah,
So transparency will make it move in a better way.
I've worked with brokers who said, this is a new one for me, I want to send you, I know you'll give them good service, if we can get this account, we can raise the rates. I've worked with brokers, we've done that.
That's the wrong train of thought.
You think?
Yes.
All right, we might have to take this offline because I do want to give the rest of the audience an opportunity, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
My name is Mark. Sorry. I should have.
Hello, Mark.
Sorry.
Hello.
My name is Mark Hegestad. First name spelled M-A-R-K. Last name is spelled H-E-G-G-E-S-T-A-D. I'm the owner of State Line Specialized Transporters, LLC, out of Joyce, Iowa. I am also the owner of State Line Logistics, Incorporated, out of Joyce, Iowa. That being said, I am a carrier, and I'm a broker as well. And I want to commend the gentleman that was just up. I'm sitting here listening to all this information go through the room here. I don't disagree with transparency, but what I will disagree with is knowing what the top dollar the broker is getting. And it's not because I don't want you to know how much I'm making per se on the load, but let's all be careful what we're asking for from a carrier standpoint. We all promoted safety, we wanted safety and everything else. Guess what? We got ELDs. Now, why do we have ELDs? We didn't have the data back before ELDs to back up that we're being stuck at the shipper or the receiver. Why? We all know why. On paper, we never had that information. Never disclosed it. So we got ELDs. The point is, be careful what we ask for. But, with that being said, from a broker standpoint, I would not hesitate to tell you what I'm getting for detention. My shippers are going to have 24 hours to submit a claim or the receiver. Don't give them this 48 hours, 72 hours, 1 week. Because you know what? Once I pull away from the dock, I have no idea what they did with that freight. I've had it happen to me as a carrier. It sucks. But in 20 years, thank God, I've only had 2 claims. Go back to FMCSA. Make sure you put it on regulation. Enforce the regulations with the brokers. I'll be the first to admit, I don't have a problem doing that with a shipper or receiver. But if you want the broker to disclose absolutely 100% of what they're making, as far as profit, they may turn around and ask you the same thing as a carrier. You know, but you might be a carrier that will do it for $1.50 a mile because your cost of expenses are lower than the gentleman over here that's got to have $3 a mile. So with that being said, if you're the one doing it for $3 a mile, you want everybody else to know if you're able to do it for $1.50. My point is be careful what we ask for. But transparency and knowing what we charge for fuel surcharge, if we're getting a fuel surcharge from a shipper or receiver, absolutely, I believe it should go right straight to the carrier. I do that right now with my owner-operators. I have a policy in place. When I get a rate confirmation, 99% of them don't have fuel surcharge. But what I will tell you, as an honest carrier, if I get an extra $200 from a broker, extra $400, that extra money goes right straight to my driver. It's a way for me to put in a fuel surcharge. My wife said, why are you doing that? I'll tell you why I'm doing it. Because I think it's fair to a driver to get that. I would have only gotten 15% of, say, $2,000, and I negotiate a deal with the broker and I get $2,200. I'll give him the $200 because I was still going to make 15% off the $2,000. I didn't lose anything. I think what we need to do is start being business owners, better business people. But at the same time, I agree, we need more enforcement on the policies that are in place. Don't try and write new ones to fix a problem that's 30 years old.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's not working. Hello?
Carolyn, we got a mic issue.
Hello, I'm Dakota Polkowska Springfields. I just wanted to tell you.
Could you spell your name?
Might need to spell
Oh,
that for
sorry.
Lindsay.
Dakota, Dakota, Polkowska, Polkowska, Springfields, Springfields. I am a small fleet owner, and to answer that other gentleman, I'm in negative debt for years now, and I'm just doing from point A to point B to see if there's a broker who has a heart and is going to pay. Before I begin, I wanted to ask, are there any veterans here that are carriers? Okay, look at those faces that you're not protecting, that those people signed up to protect you and didn't even know you. We have laws to protect us, and we need you to protect us. I just want to thank you all for your service And they fought for our freedom, freedom for our families that they didn't know, freedom for these living large, la vida loca, unappreciative brokers. Help me understand. What kind of respect are you giving these heroes who didn't know you or I and not protecting them when there are laws to protect them? Forget everybody else, but those people individually. After they survived whatever they survived and they came home at some point, they decided, let's start trucking to earn a living, only to be denied transparency enforcement of laws that were enacted to protect them. Is that how you show respect to them? Failure to deem a waiver of rights to broker documentation unlawful in contract agreements to these heroes and us is disgusting. Every day that you don't take action on our behalf to do so is an unbelievable shame on your part as a member of the FMCSA because you have all the tools in your box and you're not using the hammer. Since I've been trucking for the past 8 years, I really haven't been able to decipher who is in charge of who and who is regulating who. But I soon have learned. TQL, JB Hunt, C.H. Robinson, all those bigwigs in the trucking industry, they're regulating you. And you're not regulating them, and they're regulating us. Regulate the regulators. They're regulators, not you, in my eyes. You tell them to do something, and they just tell you, we're not doing that, and we're going to show you how we're not going to do it. We're going to put a stupid word in our little, no, not little, in our humongous contract, force these carriers to have to sign away their rights to transparency. Well, did the federal government enact that law to placate us, or did they want to fill us with false promises, to sit back and watch brokers create a loophole and get away with this crap? It should not be a prerequisite to haul their freight. And recently, it was a prerequisite for TQL. I think it was enacted to protect us because we are very vulnerable small carriers, including these heroes, to be followed and enforced by the FMCSA and the federal government. If every law that our government comes up with can easily be turned around by a broker, by some civilian, by a boss at, I don't know, FedEx or whoever, then you're not regulating. They're regulating. They're the legislators. Why is legislation even being written? Why is it being considered? Why is it being voted on if you're not even going to look at it? You're just putting it there and you're like, not doing anything with it. You have the power. Just do it. Do it today. You're going to hear everything else from us that we're telling you. We need transparency. It's not hard to decide who should be having transparency here, and that's us. The brokers already have transparency with the shippers. Most importantly, why are you not bothered by the opposing party when they are just trying to waive our rights away and putting these waivers in our contracts? They're saying, fuck you, excuse me. They're saying, F you, federal government, F you, FMCSA regulations, F you, small business owner operators, and we're not doing that. These business practices are not only awful, but they are unlawful. Brokers have managed for years to get away with doing just this, and it's time. It is time for this uneven superpower to come to an end. It is time for FMCSA to put their big panties on and put these unfair business practices to an end. It's time for fair and balanced system. This proposal was overdue, way overdue, for a ruling in favor of all carriers, in favor of federal law, and in favor of the scales of justice. Now we need you to confirm the illegality of a forced sign waiver in order to haul freight. Allowing brokers to continue to use these waiver clauses in carrier agreements deprives the trucking industry of having checks and balances, allows brokers to regulate the regulators, and to continue to monopolize the trucking industry. The main purpose of this federal regulation is to give carriers a chance, to give us a chance to see what is going on with these brokers, to check on them, to let brokers know we have laws on our side too, without having to go through a circus hoop, through loops and through whatever way they can find a way to put this in their contracts. I have asked for transparency over the 8 years for many times, and every time I did, I never got allowed to haul freight for that broker ever again. They never answered the phone, and they didn't pay me my detention, and then I don't know what happened to them. Brokers are taking advantage of us every single day. However, we, the carrier, the trucker, we're the one hauling the freight. We're the one away from home, the one missing our parents' golden years, the one whose relationships may be going down the drain because we're not home, the one missing their grandchildren, their sporting events of their kids, educational important events, because we're trying to make $1 literally out of 15 cents. The one with a bad diet, the one with unhealthy food choices on the road, the one who is sleep deprived, the one who works 14-hour day shifts, not counting personal conveyance 2 hours after that, and that's what I have to do in order to make money and make a living. Then when the personal convenience time runs out, I have to look for illegal parking, but there isn't any. So I find illegal parking, and then I get, move your truck or you're getting a ticket. Or sometimes I go to the bathroom and then I come back and my truck is gone because there is predatory towing. The one who gets overloaded at the shipper, who apparently has no accountability, actually zero, because I've been paying all the fines for having it overweight.
I'm going to have you pause for just a moment to remind everyone, we'd like you to try to keep your comments brief so the other speakers lined up behind you can talk. Now, what you could do is if you have a longer statement, you could submit that to the docket that was in the notice that announced this meeting so that you can have the full statement in the docket, but we would ask that the speakers try to limit your remarks.
Yeah, unfortunately, we only have 4 minutes left in the session.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that recently TQL denied me a load, and I had done a haul for them, and it was one particular broker, but that broker works for TQL, so he represents TQL. I was in a place in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I was not able to get a load out, and he was the only broker, and that's the problem. These brokers, they're so big, they're the only broker in many areas where I am sitting for days and weeks, literally 2 weeks. So I got denied. I had to go empty to another state to get a load, and that broker had the load over there also. So I was denied because I signed, I asked him for the documentation verbally and then in writing. And then they wrote back to me and they told me, you signed your waiver, you waived your rights to getting that information. And I just want you to know that you're thinking about, if I get denied, then maybe you're going to look at this. And transparency is definitely needed right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dakota. Unfortunately, because there are others that are coming into the room afterwards, you'll probably be the last one, sir. We only have about 2 minutes left.
I got 30 seconds.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. My name's Bob Essler, ESLER, and I've been in this business since '68. So I've seen the good and bad and ugly with brokers. I've seen them tell me, it ain't none of your business what I'm getting. This is what I'm paying you. But my comment real quick is on financial responsibility and the transparency thereof. It was just recently that we were able to get the broker bond raised to $75,000. Folks, it don't take long for somebody to go out of business and go through that $75,000. We as a small carrier or whatever, some loads were required to have $1 million insurance or $750,000 public liability. I personally think that broker bond ought to be right up there with that figure to keep these unscrupulous people from taking advantage of the small business trucker. Thank you.
Thank you. Got time for one more?
Thank you.
Last one.
It's going to be very short, and you go like that one.
Could you put that name again and spell it?
Pablo Guerrero, P-A-B-L-O, last name Guerrero, G-U-E-R-R-E-R-O. I'm French. I've been in this country for 20 years. I'm very happy. The first thing I did when I moved in here is speak, read, learn English. Then I drive a truck. I have a quick solution for you and for everybody. You have a BOL already. BOL, bill of landing. Have the shipper put the price how much a load was paid for, was moved for. We have to deny the right to ask for the price to a broker to see how much a load was paid for. Cut the loophole, stop the loophole completely, and have a law stipulate that shipper must put on the BOL how much the load was paid for. Problem is fixed. That's all you have to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but for those of you that did not get an opportunity, please go into the public docket. We do want to hear what you have to say. We do want to learn from you. So please use that as a medium to which to let us know.
I just want to say we appreciate y'all coming. We all do. Brokers, carriers, everyone in this room appreciate y'all listening, but we all need help. The industry's not in a good place. I know y'all know that. I know y'all know that. Guys, just step up and do some of the basic things, some of the things that are already law. Really try and help this industry because we're all struggling. My company, we do 1,000 loads a week between our brokers and our assets. We need help. Our brokers need help because all the bad double brokers. Our asset needs help because all the unscrupulous things. We trust y'all. We appreciate y'all, but we need y'all to step up and do the right thing for all of us in this room. We've got to have that. Y'all are the ones that are supposed to protect us. We want to work with y'all. We really do. And thank y'all for coming and listening. But please, go back and work with carriers, work with brokers, and get a better system. It's never going to be perfect.
Thank you. We'll come down. We'll come down.
Could you tell the reporter your name?
Yes.